In this lesson, we're going to show you how to use a calculator to work out interest when it is added one time only. We call this simple interest. To understand how interest works, we need to take a closer look at percentages. Percentages are all about splitting things into 100. If we take something, let's take this bar as an example and split it into 100 equal-sized pieces. Each piece is 1% of the bar. 1% can also be written as 0.01 if we're using decimals. These are just two ways of showing the same thing. If we're using a calculator to work out interest, it's easier to use decimals. So 5 pieces of the bar would be 5% or 0.05 as a decimal. 50 pieces is 50% or 0.5. And the whole bar, all 100 pieces, is 100%, which is 1 as a decimal. Now, let's say the bar is your debt and the yearly interest rate is 20%. This means if you don't make any payments, 20% interest will be added onto your debt every year. So, after 1 year, your debt will be 20% bigger than it was at the start of the year. Let's take an example where you borrow £1,000 at a yearly interest rate of 20% and you don't make any payments. To work out the interest added to your debt in 1 year, all we have to do is multiply your debt at the start of the year by the yearly interest rate. For this example, we know that your debt is £1,000 and the interest rate is 20%. But before we can use a calculator to work this out, we need to change the interest rate to a decimal. Fortunately, changing a percentage to a decimal is easy. All you do is divide the percentage by 100. So, if we divide 20 by 100, we get 0.2, which is the interest rate as a decimal. Now that we've got the decimal, we can finish working out the interest. Multiplying the £1,000 that you borrowed at the start of the year by 0.2 gives us £200, which is the interest added during the year. And if we take the interest and add it on to your debt at the start of the year, this gives your debt at the end of the year, which is £1,200. OK, let's run through that example one more time, but instead of using a yearly interest rate of 20%, we're going to use 350%. This is the kind of interest rate you might end up paying if you borrow money from an illegal lender like a loan shark. When the interest is this high, your debt grows very quickly. To work out the interest for 1 year, like before, all we have to do is multiply your debt at the start of the year by the yearly interest rate. But before we can do that using a calculator, we first need to change the interest rate to a decimal. Dividing a percentage by 100 gives us the decimal. So, if we divide 350 by 100, we get 3.5, which is the interest rate as a decimal. Now that we've got the decimal, we can finish working out the interest. Multiplying the £1,000 that you borrowed at the start of the year by 3.5 gives us £3,500, which is the interest added during the year. And if we then take the interest and add it onto your debt at the start of the year, this gives your debt at the end of the year, which is £4,500.